Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you've got a nice hot cup of tea in this very rainy and grey day, and hopefully we're going to brighten your day a little bit with some insights from our Great British Split Test. So every year we do a number of split testing over 6 or 7 months. And we're testing a number of things from subject lines, layout, preview headers, senders. We've got website testing that we've done and some social testing that we want to share with you. I'm Simon. I look after the marketing at Spotler. So I get involved in all aspects of the marketing at Spotler in the UK. If you ever see me and you want to make me feel happy and special, give me some cider or some decent chocolate. Also, if you want to bribe me into doing anything, but as you'll see on there, I also like doing stuff, testing new things. So this A/B split testing piece is a bit that I'm really interested in, and there's some great insights that the team's going to share. Just so you're aware, it's about 40 minutes long, 45 minutes long. There will be questions at the end. We'll have a Q&A, so please submit any questions that you've got in the questions panel. I will start to collate these, and then I'll have them ready for the Q&A at the end. It is being recorded, and we will send you a copy of the slides. So don't feel like you need to make notes, scribble everything down. You will get a copy of the slides, you'll get the recording, and we'll also, if it's ready in time, we'll send you out the full report from the split test as well. So I just wanted, before we get into it, I just wanted to go over Spotler for those who don't know who Spotler is. Even those who think they know who Spotler is, it's always nice to give you an update on what we're doing. But basically, in the marketing, we kind of think, it could be easy. Isn't marketing easy? Everything talks to each other, everything syncs up, we know what's happening. But in reality, we've got loads of tools and they're not disconnected. As a marketeer, we're using, 5 to 10 different tools, whether that's a CMS, an ESP, an automation platform, a calendar management platform, a CRM. There's loads, not to mention the social channels that we're trying to take control of. And what Spotler want to do is try and help you bring that all together. We're a European SaaS company, over 350 employees, hundreds of partners, thousands of customers, and we send, on behalf of our customers obviously, over billions and billions of emails, not just emails, but messages every year. And what that means is for our customers, we've got a e-commerce offering and a B2B offering, where e-commerce is, we've got a CDP, so all your data goes to one place where you can make those decisions. You can personalize the website based on past purchase behavior or engagement on your website or in other channels. We can do product recommendations, we can do online search, marketing automation and omni-channel messaging, whether that's WhatsApp, iMessage, SMS. And for the B2B side, we've got B2B lead gen, CRM management, lead gen, scoring. Again, personalization, event management, social advocacy of including your staff members, helping you to syndicate and advocate for your business and what it's trying to achieve. Obviously marketing automation, and we also have conversational marketing in there. So we're trying to seamlessly integrate those tools. So all of those tools that you use separately, you can use under one roof. And also, other than just software, more than software, we have a great UK support, training, networking, partner networking as well. So we try to offer more than just the technology to our customers. And lastly, that kind of brings to you 4 areas, time for more creativity, more growth, more strategy, insights into what's happening on customer, on campaigns. Big one, the integration into all of those tools that you're trying to use. We bring it all in, trying to integrate those platforms as well. And the control through whether that's efficiency, more insights, and controlling those integrations. So as I said, we've got a good amount to get through today. I know you didn't come here to listen to me talk about Spotler generally. You came here to see what we've been up to. So that was a welcome. We've got our colleagues, and my colleagues, Richard's going to be doing split tests, Andy's going to be doing landing page, and Charlotte's going to be doing social media. And as I said, at the end, we're going to have a Q&A. So Richard, who's our campaign manager, number of years writing content, sending out emails. He's been doing a load of testing and writing up the content for this, and he's been involved in making sure the A/B tests on the email campaigns and the landing pages go out. Over 20 years running multi-channel campaigns, and Charlotte's been heavily involved in all the social side of it. You know, she's had a fair amount of years on the social side, and now she's been in the A/B campaigns over organic to try and see which ones work best. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Richard. And I hope you enjoy this webinar.
Thank you, Simon. So I'm going to talk you through the email split test. This is the bulk part of what we do. So previous ones, if you've seen them before, we haven't tested or haven't publicly tested the landing page and the social results, but we've always split tested the email results. So some of what I'm going to show you is building on what we've covered in previous years. Some is brand new, and we'll talk about how we decided that all the way through. Now, email is a key part of what we do at Spotler, as you'd expect. It covers our lead gen, it covers our customer upsell, it covers retention. Most of you joining us watching this today came through a video invite on an email. So it's a little improvement in how we do email makes a big difference to results across the board for what we're trying to achieve. So we tested 3 areas of the email. We tested the subject line, the first thing that everybody sees. We tested the snippet, the most criminally underused bit of email real estate that there is. I opened my inbox, the first thing I got in this morning. I already had 47 emails from brands, and not a single one of them had a tailored snippet. They were pretty much all view this in browser, or you don't often get emails from sender. And that is, as you'll see, a critical waste, because there's so much you can do with it that's actually going to drive significant results. And then in the email itself, we tested the layout. We tested 7 or 8 different things that I'll talk you through. Some were successful, some weren't, and you'll see the detail of those as well. So first up with subject lines, we tested a single word. You can find any number of different references for how much email is opened on mobile now. Some say 74%, some say 37%, some say 50.96%. It depends on your industry, it depends who you believe, it depends what you read. The point is it's getting very, very big. And what that means is that more and more subject lines are getting cut off earlier and earlier. I'm sure you've all seen examples of that going hilariously wrong. So what we did was say, can we go the other direction? Can we get our subject line into a single word? Now, still a relevant word. I'm going to hopefully convince Simon and the rest of the team next year to run random words versus sensible words as a split test, and we'll see what you guys make of that. But for now, a single word seems to do quite well. A 2% improvement in the click-through rate and engagement rate is huge for us. Now, I should say the average audience that this split test covered was over 11,000. I can't quite do the maths in my head of what 2.85% of that is in terms of people seeing it, but it's worth a significant amount of good quality leads, which then lead to follow-up demos and eventually revenue. So this isn't just a meaningless exercise. This is generating bottom line for us by nudging all the numbers in the right direction. We also did a kind of a teaser style, and what made me think of this was actually Christmas appropriately, as we're now in December. Now, my wife and I are not big on surprise gifts. I tell her what I want, she tells me what she wants, we buy each other the thing, we give each other the thing. But we still wrap them up. Just giving each other the present in question doesn't have that same thing. There's something in the human brain that goes, ooh, little mystery, a little bit of excitement and attention grabbing. Now, you don't want to overdo this. So the modern office business inbox is busy. So if you have to give someone too much work to do, then they're not gonna do it. They're going to go, oh, I can't figure that out, off we go. A little tease like this, a little like, ooh, I wonder what that is, that can be impactful. Then move on to snippets. As I said, a lot of brands are not using it, and that includes big brands, not just the small, medium businesses that are most of what we work with. Big brands that you've definitely heard of, including some Spotler competitors, I will say, not using this as far as I can see in my inbox on a day-to-day basis. And the first thing we tested, it's 2025, we're legally obliged to talk about AI a little bit, so we let AI test some snippets for us. We gave it the subject line, the content, and my handwritten snippet, or human-written snippet, and said, come up with something along the same lines. So you can see how it's done that there. But actually, happily for me as the person who's writing these, AI still isn't quite there. What I've noticed from a lot of people, a lot of conversations at events and just on LinkedIn and the marketing community generally, is that people can tell when something is AI generated. They can't necessarily point to why. So that might well change very quickly, very soon, but for now, AI is not quite matching human-to-human engagement. Is all caps shouting? Most people agree it is, depends on your context. We tested all caps subject lines before, and that didn't really work very well. I think people found it a bit too aggressive. An all caps snippet, because it's got that sort of subordinate position to the subject line, actually, it's much more acceptable, and people actually prefer this. I think it just stands out more in lines of standard case text. It's a little, again, it's like the teaser, it's a little attention grab, it's not overwhelming. I think if we did the whole email in caps, again, one we could test next year, but I feel like that would come across as too aggressive or very obviously computer generated, whatever that means in the world of AI that we live in. This third one is emoji-only snippets. Now, last year we tested emoji-only subject lines, and they crashed and burned. No one liked them. It's the same thing with the teaser. It's too much. People can't take it in. An emoji-only snippet works because it has the main subject line to give it that context that's originally missing. It lets the brain fill it in a bit more easily. So then the main function just becomes a little pop of color, a little break from, again, a wall of text that the standard inbox is. So once you're in the email, you've got to look at the email layout. And we did a bunch of different things here to see if we can nudge in the right direction that we want to go. This first one is my favourite because I'm difficult like that, and you can't see Simon on screen anymore, but he's just thrown his Spotler mug against the wall because for the first time ever that we've run this, and I've been at Spotler 8 years, this is the first time that text versus HTML has won this test. Don't know why. We've not massively changed the kind of content we share. We're still speaking to the same kind of people. The frequency is roughly the same. So I would love to dive into this at some point, but for now I'm just going to take the fact that it works and just enjoy it for a little bit. Once you're in an HTML line, there's obviously a lot more you can do. There's all sorts of different blocks and columns and layouts and media levels that you can put in. We tested a very simple thing, a single column versus 2 columns, and actually 2 columns works quite well. I should say this is for your newsletters, your roundups, your end of month summary type thing. Something like the invitation to this event where there's a single call to action, it doesn't really work because there's not enough content to put in. But if you're doing regular newsletters, which still have their place, absolutely do, then a 2-column layout lets your reader scan through the text really quickly, decide if it's something that they want. Next, we're going to talk about people versus product image. This still catches me out. I knew we were testing this, and Andy builds the subject line, builds the emails, sends them over, and I go, oh yeah, all the content looks great, but what's the split test? And then he just sends me a little bing, this is what it is. So this is a subtle one, but actually it does have a bit of an impact. Again, not huge, but at the scale of a mass email, 0.39% is not nothing. There's actually some eye tracking done by a company called Hotjar that you might be aware of, where if you have the person looking or pointing at your call to action, that call to action gets even more attention. So we not just it's not just that we respond better to people, we respond to what people are doing in those images. Also, I'd share the fact that this isn't just an academic exercise for us. We've applied all these lessons to our newsletters. So you can see here our newsletters at the start were quite long. The image is a lot of stock imagery. It's a single column. Now we've moved into a multiple column layout, much more people-focused, shorter sort of teaser-style text all the way through, and it's driving genuine commercial success for us. So we're very much drinking our own lemonade and getting this done. We're not just telling you to do stuff so we can point and laugh at you. If, like Simon, you are absolutely set on doing text layouts, we've tested a few things as well. Left versus right aligned. Now, I suggested this one, and it gives me the ick. I hate it. Even now I see it and I go, oh, God, I don't like it at all. I don't know why. We're just, that's the Western European way that we're taught. We read left to right, top to bottom. So stick with what works in this case. I would say this is still a perfectly valid result. If your baseline, if your standard, whatever you're doing and testing against works better than what you test, stick with it. There's no point just changing things up for the sake of it. We also tried this was based on the result of the teaser ones. Let's get people moving quickly. Let's put the call to action above the greeting. Let's say, look, we're sending you an email. This is what you want to do. Do it, please. And it turns out people do by a margin. On the whole, they like it. They say the inbox is busy. There's over 150 odd emails going to the average business inbox every day. People want to scroll through. They want to take any actions they want. Then they say they'll go back to emails, but they don't tend to. You need to catch them when it first comes in to get the action that you want. And then our final one that we tested was Google Blue. I've called it Google Blue, but actually this goes back to the first place I could find blue as the HTML link as a standard is actually 1993. So blue links have been around nearly as long as I have, and as you can see on the performance rating, it's in our brains now. We see blue, we click, we know what we're doing. Colors like that, they might just be highlights, they might just be drawing attention. Stick with what works. In this case, a blue link performs much better than other colors that we tested. So that's my wrap up on email things, and then I'm going to hand you over to Andy, because that's how the flow of things works. People click through to the email, they come to a landing page, and then we tested things here as well. So we've put you really through the ringer as our guinea pigs on this. Andy, over to you to talk about what works on our landing pages.
Thanks, Richard. Let's talk about landing pages. Right, before we get into the examples, I want to start with something fun. Every single one of you were part of an A/B test when you registered for this event. Half of you landed on a page where the form sat right in the middle of the page, just above the fold, and the other half saw a version where the form was placed high up in the top right corner. Us marketers like to talk about A/B testing, but it's good to actually be inside the test occasionally and feel it. So what happened? The top right version won with nearly 6% engagement improvement. And this is a key learning about landing page testing. Sometimes the simplest shifts, things like where you put the form, quietly influence the whole flow of the page. And it doesn't stop here. After this webinar, I'll look at the stats and find out which version resulted in the highest attendance rate. Another learning to take away from today is don't just test once and then implement those results. You need to do a few repeat tests to get a significant meaning. We've been testing the form position on our events pages all year for all our major events, and the top right has won out on most occasions, on average performing just over 4.5% better. So let's get into some examples you can start testing yourself on your own websites. A case study from Landing Guy highlights testing conducted on the High-Rise website. The team thought a simplified layout may outperform the original long-form version. A clearer headline, cleaner layout, shorter form, clarity above information. And that produced a massive 102% lift in conversions. However, when the team put additional content on the page, conversions dropped by 22%, so they went back to this original version. The key learning here is that if your landing pages force people to think too hard, they will leave. When you make it shorter, simpler, and easy to understand, everyone wins. Now this one is brilliant because it shows how the copy does a lot of the heavy lifting. And this test is so simple to do, everyone should try it out. The travel brand Going simply changed the CTA text. That's it, same design, same offer. They tested sign up for free versus trial for free. But the stronger, more action-orientated trial for free version doubled the conversions by 104%. CTA language is absolutely key, and if that key is weak, the conversion fails. Now this one is Banner Snack. Made their CTA buttons bigger and increased the colour contrast. Same page otherwise, and that alone resulted in sign-ups jumping 25%. That is visual hierarchy in action. People gravitate to what stands out. If your most important action blends in, that's lost revenue. You can see on the original here the grey small CTA with the little heat map activity going on. Grey may fit well with their brand, but not for their site visitors. The learning here is don't be held hostage to your brand guidelines. If you can prove you can increase conversions by A/B testing a higher contrast version, go ahead and do it. In this example from Intertop, before any A/B test started, they conducted research via exit intent banner, asking, what stopped you placing your order? Out of over 400 responses, 48% said they couldn't complete the checkout form. Heat maps then revealed trends in click and scroll behaviour, while replays helped the team spot points of friction, like rage clicks. So Intertop reduced their form fields, simplified the layout, and sorted out autofill logic. The results meant completion rates rose to 54%. And this is one of the easiest wins for B2B or B2C businesses. Every unnecessary field costs you. Fewer form fields is fewer drop-offs. Try this out tomorrow on your own website and you'll start seeing some instant results. Now for a more dramatic one from Ubisoft. They redesigned their entire buy now flow. They brought the key action higher up the page, redesigned the option choices, and cut out unnecessary scrolling. This resulted in a 12% lift in conversions, and it proves a powerful point. Scroll depth kills intent. If users can't see the next step clearly, they will leave. When you put the decision in plain sight, people will commit. And finally in this section, an example of where AI can help. World of Wonder wanted to improve bounce rates and conversion rates. Small layout and messaging changes driven by AI suggestions produced a 20% lift. And this was not because AI wrote beautiful copy for them, but because it spotted small improvements humans often overlook. The lesson here is AI is good at generating testable variations and fast. You'll still need to pick the good ones, but it speeds up the cycle and is perfect for smaller teams to start doing more with less. And now let's get into some of my favourite examples. These come from Expert Beacon and they prove A/B testing is beautifully unpredictable. Surprising results. This one goes against everything we are told. A long page with a CTA below the fold beat a traditional above the fold layout by over 300%. Why? The longer page warmed visitors up before asking them to act. The visitors needed more information first before making a decision. The belief that a CTA must always be above the fold just isn't true. It depends on your customer journey, your products, and your brand recognition. Only testing will find out which one will work for you. And then there's this one from More Monkeys. Removing the hero image completely from their landing page. Doing this increased conversions by 24%. The control page featured a generic-looking stock photo of a woman at the very top. The variation was identical, just minus this image. The photo looked disconnected from the product. It distracted visitors and made them question the credibility of the website. So sometimes a generic stock photo will do more harm than good. In this test, a version where the landing page headline matched the ad outperformed a page-optimized version by 115%. People like continuity. They want to feel like they're in the right place. This suggests that the first few crucial seconds when a visitor arrives on your site, confusion is a conversion killer. So spending hours creating compelling layout, headlines, and promotional copy that is different from your ads could be counterproductive. It's the one I recommend to test out for sure. And in this example, a landing page showing a low number of likes actually harmed credibility. When a client removed the social proof entirely from the landing page, conversions increased by 18%. The likely culprit here is negative social proof, where people are deterred from taking an action because it just doesn't seem popular enough. And finally, in this scenario, adding navigation doubled conversions compared with the traditional stripped back landing page. So much for removing everything rule. Context really does matter. And also the exit rate on this page which had navigation was 61% lower. So for lesser known brands, having navigation on your landing pages allows visitors to browse and get more comfortable with your company before committing to what you have to offer. So what does this all tell us? A/B testing isn't about finding universal truths. It's about finding your truth, your audience, your funnel, and your brand. The only way to know is to test and start small. Test one variable at a time, such as shortening your pages or strengthening your CTA copy, and aim to reduce the scroll and friction. Above all, let the results guide you. Thanks for listening. Now it's over to Charlotte for some social media testing.
Okay, thanks Andy. So just a quick intro to me before I get into things. Hi, I'm Charlotte and I manage SpotlerUK's social media accounts. So naturally that means I spend a lot of my time experimenting and figuring out what actually resonates with our audience on social media. And I'm particularly passionate about the power of organic social. So this is your general social posts that go out potentially every day, but without any sort of paid budget behind them. So we've already seen some great examples of tests across email and landing pages today, but social split testing, especially organically, works a little bit differently. So I think when people think about testing on social, paid is usually the first thing that comes to mind. So you have your platforms like Meta Ads Manager or LinkedIn Ads that make it very straightforward to test. They pretty much guide you through the entire setup and they automate most of the process and give you the results firsthand. Whereas with organic social testing, it doesn't have that same structure. So there's no rule book necessarily, there's no built-in testing framework in the platforms, but it is just as important to do these tests, if not more important, for shaping your long-term social media strategy. So why do organic social media tests matter? Well, your organic tests essentially reveal how your audience behave naturally. So with paid ads, your content is shown to a carefully defined audience that you or someone in your team will have set up. But your organic content isn't controlled in the same way. So every single post is distributed completely differently by the algorithm, which means results can fluctuate pretty much day to day. So to make sense of your organic performance, you can't necessarily rely on a single post to give you the tangible results to inform the rest of your campaigns. What matters are the patterns that you essentially observe over multiple posts. And this is how you begin to uncover actionable insights from your organic social content. So today I'm going to give you examples of some tests that you can run on social that are relatively easy to set up and will give you great insights into what content your audience prefers and are more likely to engage with. So with that in mind, let's dive into the first test that you can try. So the first test is creative format testing. So this involves taking a single piece of long form content, for example, and repurposing it into multiple formats, which are bite-sized content pieces, to test which performs better. So for example, as you can see above me here, you could transform a podcast episode or take a snippet from it, a snippet from a blog, a guide, or maybe even a long form video, and then repurpose that into those bite-sized pieces of content. Say for example, as you can see above, a reel of a few reels, maybe even a carousel or a static image post. So the idea here is to keep the core message and copy as consistent as possible, and then post each of these creative formats during the course of a few weeks. So you could try this in say a 4-week period with a couple of long form content pieces. So for instance, you could select one of your blogs and maybe a long form video, and then turn each of them into a carousel and then a reel with the same, as I say, same messaging, maybe even the same copy, and then compare how they perform based on the creative type. So it's worth noting for this test that short form videos and carousel post formats like the ones above are really useful to test this specific test, because the formats can be used across multiple platforms. So you can upload carousels and obviously reels to Instagram, same with LinkedIn and same with TikTok, just to mention a few. So you can test this across different platforms too. And it's also really important to note that both platforms, both formats deliver value directly in feed by keeping users on the platform. So a crucial factor when testing your creative formats is, you don't want to have to redirect them out of the platform. It's better to keep them in feed so you can see whether it's based on the content type, what they most like to engage with. So to monitor the results of this, you can track metrics like your reach, your watch time, clicks, saves, shares, and comments in particular are a really important metric to track, as it shows that somebody is really highly engaged generally these days if they are willing to leave a comment on your post. So that's a really good one to track. And overall, this test just helps you understand the types of content that your audience prefer to consume. So the next test focuses on hooks. So a hook is essentially the first few seconds or words, for example, that your audience sees, reads, or watches. In video content in particular, there's a well-known 3-second rule now where viewers will essentially decide within the first 3 seconds whether they're going to keep watching or reading, for example, or scroll past your content. And the same principle, as I say, applies to your text-based posts, like, for example, the opening line of a caption or the cover image of a carousel. And it's widely talked about that attention spans are shrinking. So, but at the same time, competition is noticing to be increasing on social media, and for that reason platforms tend to prioritize content that grabs interest immediately. So to test these hooks, you could take the same piece of content again, a long form piece of content, and try different styles of promoting that. So whether it's in a carousel or a reel, for example, but there's a few different styles of hooks that you can try and use. So as you can see above me, there's your straight to the point hooks, scroll stopping hooks, and professional or business focused ones. So your straight to the point hooks are more quick and punchy, and they immediately tell people what they will get in this piece of content. So say whether it's a video or whether it's a carousel that they're going to scroll through, they'll know what they are going to learn from scrolling through or watching. Then you have your scroll stopping hooks. So these rely on curiosities. So for example, the do this instead, or the secret to. Or you can rely on visual impacts of key stats to make users pause mid-scroll. So something that's going to sort of shock them or really pique their interest. And then you have more professional or business focused ones. These are more polished and more authoritative, generally sort of ideal for Facebook or for LinkedIn or B2B campaigns, helping to establish your credibility. But by testing these different hook styles, you can discover which one is most likely to capture your audience's attention and keep them engaged longer. So that could even be 2 of the 3 combinations above me here, because if you're only doing one, so for example if you're in B2B and you're only say trying those professional business focused type of hooks, social platforms are becoming a lot more casual and a lot more human. So it could be worth giving the stop scroll hooks a go just to see which maybe drives the strongest engagement. And as I say, it could be a combination of a couple of them. So the third test that you can try is to test short versus long captions to see how your audience engages with both content in feed and externally from the platform. So your longer captions, like the one pictured above here, provide more context, a bit more storytelling, or provide more educational value within the caption. And then your short captions are a bit more punchy and quicker to consume, but potentially drive engagement by encouraging users to either swipe through a carousel, for example, to learn more, or watch the full video to learn more, or click a link to go to a blog, for example. So there's a couple of ways that you can test captions for engagement. So if you're testing caption length with the goal of traffic to your website, you can use a longer caption that gives a preview of the key insight and then includes a call to action linking to your long form piece of content. Or you could test a short one with perhaps less context to see which is most likely to engage your audience in terms of getting them to click through. So this works best on platforms, say like Facebook, Instagram, maybe X. And then you can track the click-throughs and traffic to see how well your caption has done in driving users off platform. Another way that you can test caption length is for platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts, to name a few. This is essentially testing captions with your in-feed content. So, for example, for the long captions, you could pair the long caption above here with a 10-second reel that has less context, and by reel I mean short form video, that has perhaps less context in the video, but with a really creative hook. So you could have text overlaid on the video saying the secret to desired result that nobody talks about, and then have text underneath saying read the caption to learn more. This generally generates engagement because your video plays multiple times while somebody is reading the caption. So that's a great way to expand your reach and your watch time. And then you could test that against a short caption paired with, say, a 30-second video that has more context in the video itself. So you can also see which types of content work alongside the caption length. So there's multiple ways here to see what captions work best in getting your audience to consume your content, as I say, whether that's in feed or whether that's externally, say on your website or on your YouTube channel. This test is one of the more simple ones, probably the more talked about, but it is still one of the most impactful, and that is timing and frequency. So your audience is not consistently online throughout the week. So timing absolutely influences the performance of your posts. So you can start by testing different times of the day, for example. You know, some audiences are maybe active more during lunchtime, while others scroll in the evening, maybe during their commute home, or for example, or at home, just in their free time. And then you can also test weekdays versus weekends. You know, some audiences completely switch off at the weekend, whereas others have time to actually engage. Especially in B2B, I think weekends can sometimes be surprisingly strong because there's actually less noise in the feed. You can also test post frequency. For example, does posting 3 times a week give you more consistent engagement, or does posting 5 times a week increase your reach because you're appearing in the feed more often? Or could it be that posting more frequently is actually overkill and your audience are seeing too much of you and not gaining enough value? Every audience behaves differently, so the key here is to look for patterns over the course of several weeks for more reliable results. So you need to monitor the timing and frequency, I'd say for at least 6 weeks, and the same goes for the other tests too. But specifically for this test, I think the time frame of say 6 weeks gives you enough cycles of weekdays versus weekends and different posting times to spot real patterns rather than just one-off anomalies, for example. And then over time, the more that you track it, you'll probably start to see things like carousels performing best midweek, for example, or videos performing strongest on, say, a Friday or a Monday, whatever it is. But then once you know that, then you can start pairing content with these post times or post frequencies based on actual audience behaviour. And then the final test that I wanted to talk about is calls to action. So these are one of the simplest tests to test, but they can have a huge impact on engagement and the way that your audience engages with your post. So even something as small as a change in the wording or placement can completely shift how your audience interacts with your post, whether that's, as I say, I've said before, whether that's engaging directly in feed or clicking through to an external page. So above here are examples of tests that we've tried and tested. So the 2 on the left are examples of in-feed engagement calls to action, and the one above me is an example of a CTA that has the goal of driving people away from the platform. So first I want to look at the in-feed engagement CTAs. So these are ideal when your goal is to boost organic reach and maximize on-platform interactions. So they basically work with the platform and the algorithm rather than against it. So examples include, comment your thoughts. So in the first post you can see there on the left, we asked people to comment their favourite Halloween film, and then the post in the middle there is one that we did for Black Friday, where we created a compilation of reaction memes and asked people to use the reaction buttons to choose which one they related to most. So this is perfect for, say, LinkedIn and Facebook, but alternatively you could do like comment the emoji for platforms like Instagram that don't have that option to react in different ways. So this is a really useful way to try and get people to engage in feed. You could also say, send this to someone who needs it to try and get better reach, or maybe even save this for later. But essentially, these encourage people to stay in the feed and engage in platform, which, as I've said, improves your reach and visibility because the algorithm favors content that is in feed. And then, as like you can see the one above me here, which is a Black Friday post that we did. This is an example of an external link CTA. So when your goal is to drive traffic, your CTAs actually become essential in encouraging that click. So this works best, I'd say, from experience, when the post itself is paired with an in-feed piece of content when you're still trying to link out. So as you can see above me here, rather than just linking out to the blog post, for example, we created a carousel to go alongside this with examples of email inspiration, and then tried to redirect people to the website. So it gives your audience value before they even leave the platform and gives them a teaser of what the full content piece will have. So examples of CTAs for this would include, have you found this useful, which is a basic one, click the link to learn more, and then about maybe, and then add context to it. You could also say, did you know, and then maybe insert a key talking point or a key stat from the piece of content that you're linking out to. Learn more about this here, and then you add the link. Or you could say, for example, if it was a video that you're linking out to, a long form video, watch the full video where we also talk about and add some context around other topics that are talked about within that content piece that people who have enjoyed this one in the short form might find useful. So again, you could test this over the course of, say, a month with different CTA types. So as I say, some of the in-feed ones, maybe some of the external link ones, to see which ones generate the most engagement, whether that's, like I say, a comment or a save or a click, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. It's also interesting to experiment with phrasing when it comes to CTAs. So rather than saying leave a comment, you could say, like, tell us your thoughts, which it's just a different way of wording it, perhaps a little bit more human, but it's interesting to see which one your audience will engage with the most. And then you can also test placement of your CTA as well. So sometimes it works better right at the start, or it could work better towards the end of whether it's a caption or a video or wherever you're placing your CTA. And then you can track the metrics for these separately. So whether it's your comments, saves, shares, reactions on a post, and each of them are going to reveal completely different behaviours that you can, line up against each other and see if there are any synchronicities in which ones people are more likely to engage with. And the more that you track, you could do this for pretty much every post, and then at the end do a deep dive into this post had this CTA and this worked better and got more clicks or more comments. It's a really useful test to try, and you can be really creative with it too. So this is, I suppose, my parting message now. But these were some really relatively, I would say, straightforward tests that you can consider, but all of them give really valuable insights into what your audience are going to want to engage with. So while organic social testing does take a little bit more effort to track than paid testing, the insights tend to be far more revealing. So by looking at patterns across multiple posts, you're really going to start to understand what is going to drive your audience to take the actions that you want them to take. And the key thing here is consistency. So when you're testing these, test one variable at a time and repeat it across several posts within, say, as I've said, that 4 to 6 week period, and track your metrics really carefully. Because once you know what your audience responds to, you can then use this to inform your paid campaigns or your organic strategy, and then amplify those strong content pieces or content types, strongest hooks, captions, CTAs, whatever it is that you decide to test, which will inevitably in future shape much stronger and more strategic campaigns.
Yes, thank you, Charlotte. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that. So Richard, really useful around email testing, what we got to. Andy, some great insights into landing page. And Charlotte, thank you for all the social pieces that you shared with everybody there. Before you leave and before we get to the Q&As, I just thought, what should you do after this webinar, or what should you take away? So we thought some key takeaways of test, and test some more. I can't stress enough that testing, and I think Andy mentioned it, that your data might react differently, might be more susceptible to different tests. So make sure you test your data and make sure you only do kind of one-step testing. You know, don't change 4 or 5 things, because otherwise you don't know what's worked well. So test. Definitely try and implement what's worked. So as Richard showed you, we've tried to put into our newsletter the bits that we've seen are working well. Me and Richard are going to go have a fight after this about Outlook and HTML. So we'll see who wins on that one. But this is the first year that HTML is actually won out over Outlook style. So it's an interesting one to have a look at, and we'll definitely test that next year. And my last one is just to have a bit of fun with it, because email, you can get into a rinse and repeat method of where you've got campaigns to go out and you just want to get them out, and you know, you don't do anything different. When it comes to testing, this is where you can have a bit of fun, do something different, and try and elicit that reaction that you're after, which is someone to engage in your email comms, whether that's a newsletter, a campaign offer, you know, trying to get a demo in the B2B world, you know, sending out your new product launch in an e-com world. So have a bit of fun, think outside the box. As I said, just to recap the Spotler piece on this, we're trying to give you all the tools available to make an impact in your marketing. And just to finish on a couple of quotes. So we've got one customer at LV saying that they made a 295% increase in conversions using our platform. So hopefully it's not just me telling you what you can do. You can see here that customer getting something very meaningful out of using the tech. And if you're a B2B marketer, we've got one for you. Increased lead conversions by 80%. Conversion from calls to appointments going up by 80% for GCC. So B2B cloud and the e-commerce cloud working quite nicely in those 2 examples. And hopefully, if you're interested, we'd love to show you as well what we can do. Without more to do, we've got Q&A. We're going to bring the team back on, and I'm going to ask some of the questions that we've got available. Right, so we've got some questions coming in, guys. So Lawrence, you've actually nicked my last 2 slides on this one, but Lawrence has mentioned, have you noticed, he's noticed on his Gmail account that no emails have snippets. Gmail's doesn't actually facilitate snippets, but they've been replaced by AI actually. So if I just skip over these 2 slides, I was going to, you know, before you leave, take 2, is Google trying to kill your email marketing. Interestingly, and we might have seen this, I've seen this on some of the other platforms where it's not just Gmail, but Hotmail, even some on Outlook, but you're starting to get AI snippet summaries. So rather than your super hero line or your preview or your snippet, whatever you want to call it, that little bit that comes below the subject line is now being replaced with AI summaries. So it's really important to make sure that the coding of the email is correct, because if it's all over the place, trying to get the summary of it or trying to get AI to read it is difficult. Also, that goes for heavily imaged emails. We've not noticed yet that the AI can read the imagery as such in emails. It doesn't seem to take a snippet from it, but not all of us put alt tags on the imagery. So Richard, actually, it's another reason why Outlook should never lose against HTML messages. But you're absolutely right, Lawrence. This is happening more and more. So we need to make sure that we're taking advantage of that snippet. But also, we really need to now make sure that we're taking advantage of who it's from and actually the subject line. That subject line is now your prime real estate to try and get across what value this email is to that recipient.
Yeah, Simon, I'd just like to jump in on that Gmail point, and it's absolutely true. This AI is changing the way that the inbox works. I've seen other studies as well, and actually where Google Mail leads, a lot of other platforms will tend to follow. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. What I would say is I looked into this. I'm writing a bit at the moment about Google's managed subscriptions, lots where it's like a mass unsubscribe at once, which has got several sections of our audience panicking. And the first thing I did, and what you can do if you're a Mail Plus user as well, is go into the Reports tab on a campaign, go into the Opens and look at the 3rd graph down, I believe it is, which is Opens by platform. And for our campaigns, the ones we send out, the ones that these are tested on, Gmail isn't on the top 10. It doesn't make it in. A lot of different versions of Outlook are there. There's a lot of Apple Mac ones. iOS tends to appear as unknown because of the way mail privacy protection has been rolled out now, but Gmail isn't on there. So, but this will depend upon you, upon your industry, upon your specific audience within that industry. So if you're a Mail Plus customer, go and check that out. I can't speak for how other platforms measure it, manage it, show you those results. But there will be, some of you, this will be a major thing that you need to get a handle on immediately. Some of you, not at all, and most of you somewhere in the middle. It'll be coming up as an issue, and it is one to think about, but it's not the apocalyptic scenario that it might be, that it initially sounds like.
So John, you've also asked what value or what's our opinion on personalisation in subject lines, because you think it can make it look more like spam. I think it absolutely can sometimes. So we've noticed generally, rule of thumb is the more personalised you can make an email look, generally the better engagement you get. So putting my name in it works well, making it personalised to, if it's B2B, putting this emails for marketeers or CMOs or directors, marketing directors. The more personal we can make it, the more likely it is we will engage with it. It's when it doesn't work or comes a little bit off, it looks a bit spammy, or marketeers at least can spot it from a mile away, especially when you have like first name personalization and it doesn't come through, or you've got first name personalization and then you've got the comma, but the comma's got a space between that and the name. You know that it's been done a mail merge and somebody in the CRM systems put Simon, but they put a space after my name. So there's little bits like that where personalization, you can pick it up quite easily. So with that kind of first name personalization or data that you're pulling in and merging in, you've got to make sure you're happy with the accuracy of it. But there are other bits that you can do, like, if you've bought something recently in the e-commerce world, you can reference that and you can say, this is the next thing you would like. If, as I said, in the B2B world, you can personalize based on maybe something that they've been looking at or interested in. It doesn't have to be their first name, it can, their function, their industry that they're in. So I definitely think personalization done well will always win out, but yes, it can sometimes come across as a little bit spammy. So you've got to try and walk that fine line sometimes. Amanda, absolutely. Thank you for a question. So you've asked what are the best practice methods for setting up A/B tests in Spotler. So it sounds like you're a Spotler customer already. It's really easy. I will leave Richard and Andy to answer that one, but I just wanted to put a bit in there. It's not always about setting up in the product. I'd recommend that part is simple, and Andy will explain it. I just recommend setting out what it is that you want to test in advance. So rather than coming up to the email and be, oh, what should we test? You've got a structure and a plan around what you're testing. So as I said, over 8 months, it keeps going up, doesn't it? I said 6 or 7 earlier. Around three quarters of the year, we will do split testing, and we've already set out what it is we're split testing from, whether it's a subject line, the sender alias, the snippet, the preview line, or what the layout is. We've already got those four or five different pieces that we're testing. So that's the main bit I would do. But over to you, Richard and Andy, if you could let Amanda know what the split testing's like, that would be great.
Yeah, best practices, good question. The most important thing I would pull up is audience size. Now as I said, most of our sends are very, very big mass communication projects. We said nothing under 1,000. 1,000 was our hard limit for these results are not included in the split test. Because if you get under 1,000, I think one click either way adds something like 2 or 3% to your swing. So a lot of those results would be a single person. I think every result could be done by less than 10 people swaying one way or the other that we've showed there. So our average audience was about 11,000. That seems to work fine. But yeah, anything less than 1,000, don't bother at all. But then there is no upper limit there. Andy, in terms of the way you build the content, anything to add?
Yeah, it's very important to have the right numbers to get the results that will matter. We've decided on at least a minimum of 1,000 for an email and even more for landing pages. Because you don't have these numbers, don't let it put you off. Like us, you can do compounded tests as well. So by running the same test over and over again, you'll compound it multiple times to get that larger audience, and you can start to see trends of whether it's working or not.
Excellent. And Amanda, yeah, you've also asked what tips have you got to what best tips have we got when using AI to generate landing page layouts or output? So Andy, that was your bag. I'm gonna hand that one over to you.
So yeah, it's super easy, really easy to use. AI has come a long way in the past couple of years, and it's now really useful for iterations. So you can create lots of different versions of headlines, subheadings, copy, and pick and choose the ones that work for you. So the examples that I've shared, we've got one that did really well with just that minimalized landing page look, and the one in the surprising section where a huge landing page and form and CTA at the bottom performed better. So you can feed that information into whichever AI you're using and ask it to come up with some A/B testing iterations based on, say, that scenario. And it'll come back with quite a few options for you to test out. As I mentioned earlier, it's kind of up to you to pick the best ones. But the thing with A/B testing is it's so unpredictable. Things that I think are going to work often don't. So you really have to come at it with a completely open mind. And AI can really help you come up with suggestions you'd never think to do.
Perfect. We've got another question in asking whatever tools are out there for A/B testing. Obviously, Spotler, you can use our tools for A/B testing, whether that's on websites, emails, but a bit like the BBC, to be slightly impartial. Andy, Charlotte, Richard, have you got any other suggestions that they might be able to use if they're not a customer at Spotler at the moment?
Yeah, in terms of tools, MailPlus. It's our own platform and we use it. That's the point of this. The same as the split testing. We're not trying to foist on you something that we don't do ourselves. It's very, very simple to run split tests. All three types of split tests: subject line, snippet, and layout. If you want to change the sender, I think that's also pretty easy in MailPlus. I have to remind myself exactly what I do, because I say, Andy, you build all the work. I just provide the content. But yeah, for tools for email split testing, MailPlus is your one.
In terms of MailPlus, it's so easy to do A/B testing in the platform. You can just use the content block editors and just tag one section A and the other B. This means that A will only appear to people who are going to get the A test. It also means you only need to build one email, not two separate creatives, and no technical knowledge is needed at all from you. You literally just tag one A and the other B. And when it comes to sending, it's just as simple. You select how many you want to get the test, whether that's the entire list, so 50-50, or let's say a 10% test for each one. And then MailPlus can select the winner and send out the version to the other 80% of your list. For our landing page testing, we've been using VWO, which I think stands for Visual Web Optimization. It's designed for marketers and it's a drag and drop system, so there's no coding needed. You can simply pull the content around, say like our forms, around the page, place them wherever you like, in the center, in the top right, and same goes for all the other elements on your page as well. Just select the element and drag it around. It's very easy to use. I highly recommend.
Excellent. We've got another one in about the amount of fields, Andy, on a website. So you mentioned in your session that the fewer fields, the more conversions you get. Can we convince everybody just to have an email address, or are we pushing it a little bit too far? Do you have a recommendation on what the optimum amount of fields are?
Yeah, certainly one email field is the ultimate, but again, context does matter. It depends on your business and what you need to do and what you need to collect. If you're in B2B, you need more information. You need the company details, you need to find those job titles, perhaps you might even need phone numbers. So as less fields will result in more completion, it's about what the next step is in the process. How will it help your sales team? Do they need more context? Do you going to have to put more information in? I think we have 3 fields on our event registration page. That seems to work best for the moment. And with our Spotler lead system as well, we can complete stuff like company information. Additionally, the user doesn't have to pop it in. For B2C, again, it's best to get that email address first, and then you can profile people later through a preference center or maybe even competitions. But yeah, getting that sign up is incredibly important. Get your pop-up or form on your website, collect that email address, get them into your system, and then you can ask them to say complete a preference center. take them on a journey to profile themselves and give you that extra data you need. It really is the best way to do it.
Right, that's a Q&A done. Hopefully you are now going to finish that cup of tea if it didn't already get cold. Go on to your platforms and you're going to start doing some split testing, where email's obviously the easiest with subject lines, who it's from, but you've got ideas for social and for landing pages now. Hopefully I've not scared you too much with the AI snippets and so forth. But thank you very much. If you are interested in Spotler and you're a customer and we've shown you some stuff that you didn't know about, please speak to your account manager. Scan that QR code to get a demo of free trial now, and I'd love to see you again on another webinar, which will probably be in the new year. Thank you very much. Have a good day.